Hello and welcome. It's a great afternoon. Presumably you've all chosen to come here this afternoon for your own particular reasons, and I'll explain a little bit more about my particular reasons a little bit later on. But I wanted to just think about peace in the park. And one thing I thought about the park, if you look at what park means, it actually means a place of recreation. And if you think about the word recreation, it's a bit like the word recreation. And what I think we're trying to do here today and over the next few days is to ask people to look again, to recreate, to look again at who you already are and what you already have, your values, what you stand for, what has meaning in your life, what has purpose in your life, and perhaps just ask you to look again at what is already there, because we have a tendency sometimes to look outside of ourselves and say we don't have enough money, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough things, we're not tall enough or thin enough or beautiful enough. We're never enough. And I think one of the beautiful things about here is it kind of just reminds you that you are enough, that actually you are more than enough, and you just have to find that place, find that beauty within yourself, because it's already there. You were born with it. You haven't lost it. You'll never lose it. It will always be there. Okay, it might be covered by a few layers of, let's call it rust, for the want of a better word, or some of the more dubious habits that we've collected over our life's journey. But essentially, it's always there, and it always will be there. So I wanted to talk to you just very briefly about, are you a human doing or a human being? Does everybody understand what that means? You can talk to me, it's okay. Yes? Good. Excellent. What's a human doing? Who's a human doing? Put your hand up if you think you're a human doing. Let's be honest here, because we're amongst friends. Okay. There's quite a lot of human doings. Now, I would put myself in that camp as well. How many human beings do we have here? Well, we've got slightly fewer, actually, so the mathematics is slightly odd, or something's not going right. And the way I would think about a human doing, I think you've got the sense of what we're really talking about, but this sense of busy and hurriedness. You know, I've got to be somewhere, I've got to do this, I've got to get there, I must, and it's a bit like having a checklist, isn't it, every day? You start your day with a checklist, I must do this, 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 this. And actually, do you feel great if you've ticked off everything in your checklist at the end of the day? Does that feel good? We've got a few people going, no. There's always more to do, yes. So you could write another checklist, and another checklist. So what do we do? Because we've got to do stuff. What's a human being? What's a human being?
Flesh, body, bones. Being in the moment.
Go as you please, in the moment, present.
The human being is at the center of the human doing.
Okay.
In the now.
It's very interesting you say that, because I was at a friend's house last week and I told him that I was doing this talk, and he said he had a gardener outside she's a very aware gardener, and he was laughing at the topic of the subject. And he knocked on the window and he said to her, Julia, he said, are you doing or being right now? She was tending a rose. And she thought about it for literally a split second. She said, both. And there's kind of a slight BK joke around here, but they say, well, it's a bit, if you're doing and being, it's a bit like music. And the music goes like, dooby-dooby-doo, do-do-do-dooby-dooby-doo, as in do and be, yeah? Do and be, do and be. So it's very difficult to put them into separate pots and say, I'm a human doing, and now I'm a human being. It's virtually impossible to do that. But the fact that most of you know what I'm talking about in terms of doing or being. So being, as I would probably define it most closely, is an awareness. It's much more of an awareness about where are we. So now we're in a beautiful white tent. It's a beautiful sunny day in some wonderful grounds with some lovely people, with some great energy. How many of you are really here right now? How many of you are totally here? About half, about a third. How many are you thinking about that helicopter up above? Yeah? How many are thinking, I really need to get out of the car park and I'm not sure whether I can a little bit later on? How many of you are thinking, oh, they don't have any decent meaty food here and I really need some of that? Yeah? So there's lots of things that take us away from the moment. But actually, we have the power. We are incredibly powerful beings. We have the power to be here right now. And I think one of the ways of doing that is to understand a little bit more about ourselves. And the way that I started my journey on this is to talk about energy and personal energy. How much do we really understand about our own personal energy? So I'm going to ask you to do a bit of an exercise, so it means I don't have to talk so much. I'm going to ask you to think. That's difficult, isn't it? Think. I'm going to ask you to think about 3 things that give you energy, give you positive energy. A person, a project or an activity, so it could be gardening, sewing, music, it could be whatever it is, and a place. So a person, a project, and a place. Can you think of those 3 things? Yeah, got it? Right, just turn to the person next to you. I'm going to give you a minute each to talk to each other and tell them what it is. 30 seconds each. Go. Okay, come back, come back, come back. Come back. All right, what did we learn from that? Do we spend a lot of time doing the things that give us energy? How much time do you spend doing those things? Half and half. How many of you spend more than half your time doing the things you really love to do and give you energy? Yes, we know about you, Anthony. That's okay. There's a few troublemakers in the house. That's good. There's not many of you, is there? How many of you spend, let's say, a third, more than a third of your time, yeah, of doing the things you love, doing the things that give you energy? Okay, a little bit more. Okay. I want you to do the same exercise. The way I look at this is I think about energy as a pot. So an old-fashioned, almost cauldron. Think of it as a cauldron. And think about all the things, who or what is filling your pot, right? Because it rhymes and it's nice. Who or what is filling your pot? So what people, what projects, and what places give you energy on a day-to-day basis? So we've done that. What about drillers? So you've got fillers and drillers. Okay, who or what is drilling holes in your energy pot? All right? So think about, your parents or your children could be fillers and drillers. That's always possible. Not that I've done this exercise myself and talking from experience, but you can have the same person or activity which is a filler and a driller, depending on how it's done. So have a think very quickly now. Person, project, place. What are 3 things that drill holes in your positive energy pot? Have you got that? You don't have to think that hard, do you? No? Right, share that. You've got 30 seconds each to share, if you can do that now. Okay, come back. Come back. This is not a day-long seminar here. This is just a little bit of sharing, that's all. Okay, how was that? Can a few people just share a few things? What drains you of energy?
Family.
Family? All of your family, sir?
Number 1. I think most people would say family.
Okay. Just sometimes. Neighbours? Job? Bills? Yep. Waste thoughts? Very good. Negativity? Dwelling on the past? Yep. These are too much to do. You're stuck in the doing. You're the human doing, aren't you? Yes. Yes. Inauthenticity, yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So how can you do more of the positive things? How can you do and spend more time doing the things that give you positive energy? A lot of these things are people, if you notice. A lot of the examples you've given are people. Do you have to spend time with these people? If they live with you, you probably do, yes, yes.
Expire, yeah.
But then you might want to think about actually why are these people being as they're being?
Because they're old and fussy and from a different generation.
And I think a lot of it is how we show up in the world. And it's very easy, and I found this with my family as well, it's very easy to say it's him, it's her, it's them, it's whatever. It's very easy to point the finger at somebody else because then it's not us. It's not my problem. I'm perfect and it's somebody else's problem. Somebody else being annoying. But actually when you start looking at yourself, it's not probably quite so perfect. Not quite so perfect, yeah? And thinking about, in a previous life form, I was a TV news reporter and presenter. And I used to interview people about, well, a whole host of different things. But people used to say, well, you know, who's the most famous person you've interviewed or whatever? And I used to say, well, actually, it's not about that. It's about the people who are really very passionate and really very dedicated to what they're doing. So I remember one lady who, her son had been knocked over and killed just outside of school. And she'd come onto the show, onto the breakfast show, and talked about it. And she was just so passionate about the fact that she was going to make a difference. This boy's life was not going to be lost in vain. And she'd completely changed. And the way that people are, the way they talk, is completely different. They don't have airs and graces. They're not worried about looking stupid or silly. They just want to be themselves. And that's really what we're trying to help people to find, is that sense of when you get rid of all of the outer covering, all of the outer pieces, what is actually there underneath. And from a personal experience of mine, I mean, part of my story is actually going through some difficult times. My son, when he was 4, was diagnosed with leukemia, and that's a bit like being hit by a bus, quite frankly, if any of you have been through that scenario, because these are things that always happen to other people. They don't happen to you. And, you know, initially I think I dealt quite well with it. And then about a year in, he was on a 3.5-year chemo program. And about a year in, I just didn't quite sort of feel right. And I'd come to Peace in the Park 2 years ago and had a really nice time. It just seemed like a really nice place to be. That's right. And I just think you get to a stage where you start to say, okay, how do I get through this? How do I work through this? And I'm quite a practical person. I think, well, why waste a good crisis? And started to come to a few sessions here. And you start to realize that the only way to get through each day, and literally what I did was I took each day. And sometimes I took half a day because a day was too long. Day was kind of spanning, looking too far into the future. So I used to take it sort of half a day. If I could get to sort of lunchtime and be fine, that was fine. If I got to the end of the day, fantastic. You know, and each day was a bonus because each day he was here and he was alive. And I think just that whole process and spending a bit more time in kind of quiet reflection, you start to realize that the way to do that is to feel grateful, to appreciate. And I don't think I'd ever really understood what appreciation and gratitude was. You know, we see nice sort of buildings and we see nice weather and lots of lovely things, but we don't really appreciate it. It's all a bit like a movie scene which sort of goes in front of us. How much do we really spend time appreciating? And because I work in kind of media and IT, I thought, well, there must be an app for that, because there's an app for everything else. And so I found this gratitude app as well. And each day started writing down all the things that I was grateful for, whether it was literally just seeing a child smile. As I came on the train this afternoon, there was a little Indian girl who was smiling at me on the train. And just things like that that I wouldn't have clocked. I just wouldn't have really noticed, or I just swatted away. You really kind of notice those things and they make a difference. And it's kind of everybody's human need to belong. I see you. I see that you exist. I see your being. And quite often, how many times do we just waste that experience? So each day now, I literally just jot down some of the very, very simple things that that are important. So that's the one thing that I would encourage you to do. And there's a lovely saying, actually, by a guy called, he's a Benedictine monk, actually, Brother David Stendhal Rast, and he said, the root of joy is gratefulness. It's not joy that makes us grateful. It's gratitude that makes us joyful. So it's a slightly different way round. It's looking at how do we start to feel a little more gratitude, because that's the way that we will find happiness, the way that we will find joy, is everything we need is right here. We don't need to search. We don't need to travel the world. Everything you have is right here, right now. And I thought about just ending with, because I was supposed to talk to you about enlightened enthusiasm, although I don't think I'm really qualified to talk about enlightened enthusiasm. But I thought of 4 E's. And because Anthony's here, he likes four of the same letter of things. So I thought E for eat well might be a good one. Think about perhaps eating a little less meat, maybe. I don't know if many of you eat quite a lot of meat, but that makes a big difference to your energy levels. Exercise. Exercise is always a good thing. You know, keeping this vehicle going is quite important because it gets you from A to B and it makes you feel very good at the same time. So that's really important. E for exhale. Sometimes exhale is just, okay, maybe slightly collapsing and sleeping. Sleeping is very important. But actually exhale in terms of breathing and learning how to breathe is really important. There are many ways to breathe, as probably many of you know, but learning how to find a way to breathe which helps you is really, really important. And last and not least, emotions. And it's a massive subject, and I know I don't have very long to talk about this. But I just want you to kind of reflect and think about that you can actually affect your emotions. I know John was talking a little bit earlier about this, but, you know, he made me feel bad. She made me feel rubbish. Okay? Those people can only make you feel bad if you allow them to make you feel bad. And it's about staying in your peace. It's about staying in your own space and staying centered. And there's a lot more I could say about this. But I just wanted to close with a lovely quote, and it's been quoted a lot, but I think it's very real. And it is that the fact that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light and not our darkness that frightens us most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Thank you.